This is KCTV English News. I'm Nick Brontes. The governor has explained his decision to allow the opening of the nation's first for-profit hospital. Won Hee-ryong posted a message Friday on Facebook entitled, "Tell the Truth, Don't Blame Others." He argued that he took great pains in coming to his decision and that he ultimately felt he must authorize the opening of Greenland International Hospital in the interests of the future of both Jeju and the nation. He added that he would institute multiple layers of safety to ensure his decision has no adverse effect on the public medical system. The governor also drew on a message expressed during the funeral of former American President George H.W. Bush by saying he does not blame others for criticizing his decision. Critics of the governor's decision are planning their next moves. A local umbrella organization comprising 30 civic groups and political parties held an emergency press conference Friday afternoon at the provincial council building. Representatives blasted the governor's decision as deceitful by pointing out that previous public opinion research had determined that most locals were against the hospital. They vowed to hold candlelight vigils every Saturday beginning December 15th, calling on Governor Won Hee-ryong to both revoke his decision to allow the opening of the nation's first for-profit hospital and step down from the governorship. Authorities say the avian influenza antigens discovered in Hadori, Gujaub, Jeju City are of a low pathogenic variety. The Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs restricted poultry shipments within 10 kilometers of the site after antigens of the H5 strain of AI were discovered in bird excrement on December 3rd. Following detailed testing, provincial authorities determined on Sunday that the antigens were of a low pathogenic variety. The province therefore lifted restrictions on poultry shipments. The provincial government wants to expand Jeju's UNESCO Biosphere Reserve designation to include the entire island and the surrounding waters. And researchers have concluded that that means Jeju needs an integrated management plan to preserve, utilize, and develop the island's natural resources. In its final report on a management plan for the areas designated as a Biosphere Reserve, the Jeju Research Institute emphasized the need to create an office to oversee all biosphere projects that are being run by local villages, organizations, the local government, and the national government. The institute also argued that this integration should happen as soon as possible in the interests of expanding the UNESCO designation. The Jeju branch of the Korean Red Cross held a charity Kimchi event in its offices on Friday. About 150 volunteers from the Jeju branch of the Korea Housing Builders Association, the post office, and other organizations got together and made kimchi out of 1,300 heads of cabbage. They will deliver it to 500 area households, including those from the most vulnerable sectors of local society, as well as those receiving support from social welfare organizations. Winter is definitely upon us, and while the cold may be uncomfortable and annoying to many, it's much more of a serious problem to those living at the edge of society. Joseph Kim reports.
In a shabby container with layers of plastic around to fend off the cold air, Mr. Kang Gap-dong, who has a leg disability, has lived here alone for 7 years. Following last summer's painful scorching heat, he now has to be worried about the coming cold spell. He covered the windows with plastic insulation and placed 5 layers of blankets on the floor. But the cold air doesn't go away.
문도 다 덮어서 해놨어도 추워. 습기가 막 차고 물 뚝뚝 떨어지면 저 목구멍 저런 데서 그러면 양풍이 같은 거 갖다 놓고 그러면.
Ms. Kang Hwaja, in her 60s, is also scared of the coming winter weather. An electric blanket is the only thing she can rely on in the cold weather, living in a steel container. Over the last 10 years, she is heavily clothed in winter instead of turning on the heating pad for concerns of high electricity bills. The place is vulnerable to cold and fire, but there are no basic fire extinguishing facilities. A prefabricated toilet standing next to the container collapsed in a storm last summer, which makes her life more difficult.
겨울에는 이 얼굴을 내놓지를 못해 추니까 다 갖춰놓고 몸 복으로 살았어.
The underprivileged neighbors struggle living on the basic allowance from the government and relief supplies. There are 42 households in containers or greenhouses on the island. However, the island doesn't have data on dwellers in flop houses and basements. Research is urgently needed to understand the poor and disadvantaged and improve their living conditions.
굉장히 열악한 환경에서 생활하시는 분들을 저희들이 대안으로 주택을 마련해 줄 수는 없지만 정기적인 관리가 좀 필요하다. 혹한기나 혹서기에 제대로 생활을 잘 하고 계신지 방문을 하고 위문도 하고 있고요.
To our needy neighbors, this winter too is tough. Joseph Kim, KCTV.
Ring in the new year and catch the first rays of 2019 at the Seongsan Sunrise Festival. There's a 60% chance of between 5 and 30 millimeters of rain Tuesday, or a few centimeters of snow at higher elevations. The wind will pick up after lunch as well. For the details, here's your forecast. The morning low in Jeju City will be 8 and the afternoon high 12 degrees. In Seogwipo, temperatures will fall between 9 and 13. In Seongsan, the low before lunch will be 8 and the high later on 12 degrees. Exactly the same temperatures are expected across the island in Gosan. And the morning low up on the mountain at Songpanak will be 2, and the afternoon high 6 degrees. Out on the water, winds will be out of the northeast and east at 9 to 13 meters per second, and seas will be between 1.5 and 2.5 meters. And here's a look at the extended forecast. That brings us to the end of today's newscast. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you'll tune in next time. Until then, don't forget to find us on YouTube by searching for KCTV E-News Jeju. 시청자 여러분, 고맙습니다.